This moment is not accidental. You did not arrive here by wandering. You did not hear these words by chance. Something older than your questions, something wiser than your fear, something that has been watching the long arc of your life, with quiet patience, has arranged this meeting between your spirit and this message. And even as you listen, something inside you already knows this is different. There are many messages in the world, many voices, many noises competing for your attention. But this one did not come to entertain you, it did not come to fill time, it came to interrupt a pattern. My beloved, you were not meant to pass through this moment half awake. There is a subtle shift happening in your inner world right now. You may not have words for it. You may only feel it as a strange stillness, or a quiet pressure, or a sense that something is standing just outside the door of your awareness, waiting to be acknowledged. Something is slightly off. Not broken, not ruined, not beyond repair, just misaligned. Like a compass that is still pointing, but not exactly north. Like a door that almost closes but never quite settles into its frame. Like a path you have been walking faithfully, yet somehow it never fully feels like arrival. You have felt this, in the moments when you should feel satisfied but something inside remains unsettled. In the victories that look real but do not rest deeply in your spirit. In the way your soul sometimes grows quiet instead of peaceful. You may have told yourself, you are just tired. Or that this is normal. Or that everyone feels this way sometimes. But this is different. This is not exhaustion. This is awareness beginning to wake up. Time is involved now, not in a way that should frighten you. Not in a way that threatens you, but in a way that asks you to become present. There are seasons when life flows gently, when days blend into each other, when nothing presses too hard. And then there are seasons when life leans forward and asks a question. You are in such a season. You are not being rushed. You are being invited to notice. To notice the quiet signals you have been stepping over. To notice the gentle discomfort you have been explaining away. To notice the sense that something in your life is almost right, but not quite true. There is a reason you are hearing this now and not months ago. There is a reason this is touching something inside you, instead of passing over you like noise. You have reached a point where small adjustments matter more than they used to. You have reached a place where continuing in the same direction will cost more energy than changing course. And that is not a threat. That is a mercy. You were selected for this interruption, not because you are failing, not because you are in danger, but because you are standing near something that requires awareness. Some people live their entire lives, never questioning the direction they are moving. They stay busy, they stay distracted, they stay convinced that movement is the same as progress. But you are different. You have been sensing the pauses between events. You have been feeling the weight of questions that do not go away. You have been noticing that time feels louder lately. Not faster, more meaningful. As if each choice carries more echo than it used to. You may not be able to name what feels wrong. You may only know that something in your spirit has been restless, that even in quiet moments, your soul does not fully rest, that you have been doing your best, showing up, trying, enduring, and yet there is a subtle feeling that you are close to something important, but not quite touching it. Hear this gently. You are not lost, but you are at a threshold, and thresholds require awareness. Something is approaching your door. Not as destruction, not as punishment, not as disaster in the way your fear might imagine, but as consequence, as correction, as alignment, as a moment that asks you to be more honest with yourself than you have been required to be in a long time. The strange part is, part of you already knows this. You have felt it in moments of sudden clarity that quickly faded, in thoughts that return again and again, even when you try to ignore them, in the quiet sense that something in your life is asking to be re-examined. You do not yet need to know what must be changed. You do not yet need to see the whole picture. Right now, It is enough to admit that you feel the shift, because awareness always comes before direction. And direction always comes before peace. Do not move away from this moment. Do not explain it away. Do not tell yourself you will think about it later. Later is how seasons are missed. Later is how gentle warnings become heavy lessons. This is not meant to scare you. It is meant to wake you. You are not at the end of something. You are standing at the moment just before realignment, just before clarity, just before a quieter, truer way of moving forward begins to make itself known. Stay here, stay open, let this moment speak to you, because what you are about to notice next may explain more about your life than you are expecting. There was a moment, so ordinary that no one would ever mark it on a calendar, when something in your life quietly changed direction. It did not arrive as a crisis. It did not come with alarms or warnings. It did not feel like a mistake. It felt like a reasonable choice, or a necessary silence, or a compromise that seemed harmless at the time. Maybe it was something you agreed to even though your chest felt tight. Maybe it was something you did not say when you should have. Maybe it was a door you walked through because standing still felt more frightening than moving forward. And in that moment, something in you hesitated. Just for a second. And then you continued anyway. From the outside, nothing looked different. Your life kept moving. Your days kept filling themselves. Your responsibilities did not disappear. You were still you, still functioning, still showing up, but somewhere deeper, very small shift took place. Not enough to break anything, not enough to stop you, just enough to slowly change the angle of your path. You did not notice it right away. You only noticed it later, as a feeling. A quiet heaviness. A low, constant tiredness that sleep does not quite fix. A sense that you are always slightly managing your life, instead of living inside it. You told yourself this is normal. You told yourself this is adulthood, or responsibility, or just how things are. And because you are strong, you adapted. You learned how to carry what does not fully belong to you. You learned how to be capable, even when you are not at peace. You learned how to explain to yourself why something that feels heavy is actually fine. But your spirit kept a different record. My beloved, you have been carrying something that did not begin in your own heart. A direction shaped by circumstance, a responsibility shaped by pressure, a role shaped by what was needed rather than what was true, and slowly, almost without noticing, you began to treat this as your identity. You stopped asking certain questions because they did not seem practical anymore. You stopped listening to certain longings because they felt unrealistic. You stopped trusting certain signals because they did not fit the life you were building. And then, you started blaming yourself. You wondered why things take so much effort, why progress feels heavier than it should, why even good moments sometimes feel strangely hollow. You may have asked yourself, why am I always tired? Or, why does it feel like I'm always catching up? Or, why do I keep ending up in the same emotional place, even when everything looks different? And because you are honest, part of you has wondered if something is wrong with you. Listen gently now. Not everything that shifted was your fault. There were voices you trusted. There were situations that did not offer perfect choices. There were seasons when you had to choose what was survivable instead of what was ideal. You did not choose wrongly. You chose wisely for who you were at that time. But survival choices are not meant to become lifelong assignments. You did not betray yourself. You protected yourself. And protection, when it stays too long, quietly turns into a cage. You have felt that. In the way rest does not fully restore you. In the way your mind keeps circling the same unspoken question. In the way your heart feels both grateful and heavy at the same time. You may look at your life and think, I should be happier than this. Or I should feel more settled than this. Or, why does it feel like I'm always adjusting instead of arriving? It is not because you are ungrateful. It is because you have been living slightly sideways to your own truth. Not in rebellion, not in ignorance, in adaptation. For a long time, adaptation was necessary. It kept things together. It kept you moving, it kept you safe. But now your spirit has grown, and what once felt manageable now feels heavy, not because the burden is larger, but because you are finally strong enough to notice that you do not need to carry it anymore. You are beginning to see how much energy it takes to maintain a life that is not quite shaped around who you truly are. You are beginning to notice how much of your strength goes into holding things in place, instead of letting things become honest. And this is not a failure. This is maturity. This is awareness. This is the moment when your soul says, I am ready for something truer. You do not need to reject your past. Your past brought you here. It taught you endurance. It taught you resilience. It taught you how to survive. But it was never meant to be your final shape. There is something ahead that cannot be reached by continuing in the same direction, even if that direction feels familiar, even if it feels respectable, even if it feels safe. You do not yet need to know what must change, but you do need to admit that something has. And that admission, quiet, private and honest, is already beginning to move your life. Even if you cannot yet see where it leads, you have noticed the patterns, even if you have tried not to name them. They do not arrive loudly, they do not announce themselves as problems, they simply repeat. The same kinds of situations wearing different faces, the same emotional endings dressed in different stories, the same sense of almost breaking through, almost arriving, almost resting. And each time, you tell yourself, next time will be different. And each time, something subtle pulls the moment back into a familiar shape. This is not because you are failing, it is because your life has been protecting you from moving forward, while something is still misaligned. There is a kind of mercy hidden inside delay. There are things you have wanted that did not come when you were ready for them in your mind, but not yet ready for them in your spirit. And so they paused, not to punish you, not to withhold from you, but to keep you from building your future on a foundation that would later feel like a trap. You may have called these moments setbacks, you may have called them bad timing, you may have called them disappointments. But some disappointments are detours. Some closed doors are hands gently steering you away from a room you would have eventually felt suffocated inside. You have asked why peace feels temporary, why momentum fades just when it begins to feel real, why every time you start to settle, something inside you whispers, this isn't quite it. That whisper is not fear, it is discernment. You have been negotiating with a life that is asking you to align with it. And negotiation always feels tiring. You can make almost anything work for a while. You can hold almost any structure together with enough effort. But what costs you, your peace is always more expensive than it looks. You have been strong, you have been patient, you have been responsible. But responsibility is not the same as resonance. And patience is not the same as agreement. There are cycles that do not end because you work harder. They end because you stop walking in the wrong direction. There are patterns that do not break because you become better at enduring them. They break because you no longer need the lesson they were teaching. Your setbacks have not been evidence of failure. They have been evidence of protection. You were not being kept from something good. You were being kept for something truer. You may not see it yet, but some of what you thought you lost would have eventually asked you to lose yourself to keep it, and your life refused that exchange. That refusal has shown up as delays, as interruptions, as strange repeated pauses that seem to make no logical sense. But spiritually they make perfect sense. You are not being stopped, you are being spared. The urgency now is not about danger. It is about timing. There is a moment approaching where small choices will have larger echoes, where subtle clarity will ask for honest action, where continuing as you are will require more energy than changing course. You are not being threatened by this moment, you are being invited by it. There are times in life when grace feels like softness, and there are times when grace feels like insistence. You are in an insistent season, not because you have done something wrong, but because you are ready to do something right. Your spirit is tired of circling. Your heart is tired of preparing for a future that never quite arrives. Your inner world is tired of being managed instead of lived. You may feel a strange pressure lately, not anxiety, not fear, more like compression, like something is trying to form, like something is trying to move from potential into reality. That pressure is not against you, it is for you. But it requires space, and space requires letting go of what no longer fits. If you ignore this, life will not punish you, but it will grow louder, not cruel, clearer. What starts as a whisper becomes a nudge. What starts as a nudge becomes a pause. What starts as a pause becomes a standstill, not to harm you, to make you listen. You are being given the gift of noticing before you are forced to stop. You are being offered awareness before you are offered disruption. That is kindness. And the fact that you are aware now means you are early, not late. But early moments are delicate. They ask for honesty more than effort. They ask for courage more than control. They ask for alignment more than endurance. You do not need to fix your whole life. You only need to stop pretending that the current direction costs you nothing. There's a simpler way forward waiting, not easier, truer. And your life has been quietly clearing the path to it for longer than you realize. Soon you will begin to see what has actually been guiding you all along. And when you do, many things will finally make sense. You have never been as alone as you sometimes feel. Even in the moments when your thoughts circle quietly, even when you believe no one truly sees the weight you carry, even when you think your private struggles are invisible, you are not unseen. There is more surrounding your life than what your eyes can measure. Not in a way that watches you with judgment, in a way that witnesses you with care. There have been moments when things should have fallen apart and somehow did not. Conversations that could have gone in one direction but turned gently in another. Decisions you almost made that, for reasons you could not explain, you delayed. Those were not accidents. There have been times when doors closed and you felt disappointment, even grief. But later, when you looked back, you realized that what felt like loss had quietly saved you from something you were not ready to carry. Those were not coincidences either. Your life has been held together by more than your own strength. There has been a kind of unseen coordination around you. Not controlling you, not forcing you, but quietly arranging timing, softening impacts, and keeping certain paths from becoming permanent too soon. Your tears have not been wasted. Not the ones you cried where anyone could see, and not the ones you cried where no one knew. Your unspoken prayers have not disappeared into silence. Your endurance has not gone unnoticed. Even the times you felt like you were barely holding things together, there was something holding you. You may not have had language for it. You may have called it luck, or timing, or coincidence. But deep down, you have always sensed that your life has been accompanied, not in a dramatic way, in a steady, patient way. There have been moments when you were protected from choices you thought you wanted. Moments when something in you hesitated just long enough for circumstances to change. Moments when a delay felt frustrating but later proved to be essential. That is not control, that is care. But care never replaces your will. You are not being moved like a piece on a board. You are being invited into cooperation. Help does not override your choices. It waits for them. Guidance does not cancel your freedom. It responds to it. There is support around you, but it is activated by your willingness, not your perfection, not your certainty, your willingness, You are not expected to have everything figured out. You are only being asked to be honest when something inside you says, "This no longer fits." There are prayers you whispered long ago that are still active. Not because you earned them, but because they were true. There are hopes you thought you outgrew that have not outgrown you. They were only waiting for you to grow into them. There are promises you assumed were forgotten, that were simply waiting for the right alignment to return. But alignment is not automatic. It is relational. It is a conversation between what is offered and what is accepted, between what is prepared and what is permitted. You are not being watched from a distance. You are being accompanied. An accompaniment is gentle, but it is also attentive. It notices when your spirit grows quiet instead of peaceful. It notices when your strength is being spent on maintenance instead of movement. It notices when your life is being held together by habit rather than truth. You may feel lately like you are being observed by life itself, as if events are pausing slightly, as if timing is becoming more deliberate, as if things are lining up in ways that feel meaningful but not yet clear. That is not pressure. That is focus. You are in a season where your next choice carries more significance than usual, not because everything depends on it, but because something important is ready to move, and it needs your participation. You are not being rushed, but you are being invited to stop pretending you are fully at peace with where you are. You are being invited to admit that something is asking for your attention, not in crisis, in honesty. You do not need to make declarations. You do not need to make dramatic changes. But you do need to acknowledge when your inner world is no longer in agreement with your outer life. That acknowledgement is a form of consent. And consent changes what is allowed to help you. There is a quiet cooperation waiting to happen between what is already surrounding you and what you are willing to receive. When that cooperation begins, things do not become louder. They become clearer. Paths do not become easier. They become simpler. You are not being pushed. You are being waited for. And something patient, attentive, and very near is ready to walk with you the moment you turn slightly in its direction. That turn does not require certainty, only sincerity, and it may be closer than you think. There are moments when life does not ask for speed, it asks for honesty. You are approaching one of those moments now, not a collapse, not a confrontation, not an ending that arrives with noise or drama. This is not a breaking point. It is a recalibration, a quiet but decisive reroute. It will not feel like the ground disappearing beneath you. It will feel like the ground gently shifting so you can finally stand more naturally. You will recognize it not by urgency, but by clarity. Not by pressure, but by simplicity. It may arrive as a conversation that stays with you longer than you expect, or as a thought that returns again and again, not anxiously but persistently, or as a realization that feels less like new information and more like remembering something you have always known. This is not coincidence. This is alignment beginning to speak. You have lived for a long time by adjusting yourself to fit situations, by being the one who carries weight, by being the one who makes things work, and that strength has served you. But now your life is asking for a different kind of strength. The strength to stop negotiating with what your spirit already knows. The strength to stop calling endurance destiny. The strength to admit that something which once made sense no longer does. You are not being asked to destroy anything. You are not being asked to reject your past. You are being asked to release what no longer belongs to the version of you that is emerging. This is where choice becomes sacred. Not the kind of choice that feels dramatic or visible. The kind that happens quietly, internally, and then changes everything without announcing itself. You will not be forced. You will be invited. But invitations, even gentle ones, do not remain open in the same way forever. Not because opportunity is cruel, but because seasons move, And when a season is ready to change, staying becomes heavier than leaving. You may feel a strange mixture of relief and fear as this moment approaches. Relief, because part of you is tired of holding things together that require constant effort. Fear, because change always feels like stepping into thinner air. But you are not stepping into emptiness. You are stepping into truth. And truth, while unfamiliar at first, is lighter than pretense. Something is about to surface, not to accuse you, not to expose you to others, but to free you from a quiet contract you have been honoring without realizing it. It may surface as words you hear. It may surface as silence that finally says enough. It may surface as an inner knowing that refuses to be negotiated with anymore. When it does, your task is not to react, not to rush, not to defend. Your task is to recognize. To say, even if only inside, I see it now. That recognition is already a decision. You do not need a perfect plan. You do not need full certainty. You do not need permission from anyone else. You only need willingness. The path will not disappear the moment you acknowledge it needs to change, but it will stop resisting you, and that is how you will know you are moving in the right direction. There is a difference between effort and alignment. Effort feels like pushing. Alignment feels like cooperation. You have been pushing for a long time, not because you were stubborn, because you were responsible, because you were loyal, because you were trying to keep things from falling apart. But there is a point when keeping things together is no longer the same as keeping them true. You are reaching that point. This reroute will not take you backward, even if it feels like you are stepping away from something familiar. Familiar is not the same as right. This reroute will not take away what is essential. It will only remove what has been weighing you down. You may worry about what you will lose, but pay attention to what you are already losing by staying. Your energy, your clarity, your sense of inner agreement. The future does not need you exhausted. It needs you aligned. You do not have to explain this shift to anyone. You do not have to justify it. You only have to live it. And when you begin, you will notice something subtle but unmistakable. Life will stop pushing back. Things will not become perfect, but they will become more honest. Decisions will not become effortless, but they will become simpler. You are closer to this moment than you think. And when it arrives, it will not shout. It will wait. Patiently. For you to tell the truth to yourself and take one small, real step in its direction. And that step will change far more than it seems. Clarity does not always arrive as peace. Sometimes it arrives as feeling, as a soft but persistent unease, as emotion that seems to come from nowhere, as a tenderness you cannot explain. You may notice yourself becoming more sensitive lately, more aware, less able to ignore things you once brushed aside. This is not instability. This is perception sharpening. When light enters a room that has been dim for a long time, the first thing you notice is not beauty. You notice dust. Do not be discouraged by what you suddenly see. Nothing has gone wrong. You are not moving backward, you are simply seeing more clearly. There may be moments when sadness comes without a clear story, or when a memory feels heavier than it used to, or when you realize that certain conversations, certain places, certain habits no longer fit the way they once did. This is not loss. This is sorting. Your inner world is reorganizing itself around truth, and reorganization is rarely quiet. It does not mean something is broken. It means something is becoming precise. You may feel a desire to explain yourself, to justify past choices, to defend old decisions. This is natural. But you are not on trial. You are in transition. Revelation is not an accusation. It is an invitation to put something down. You are not being asked to regret who you were. You are being asked to honor who you are becoming. Some truths will feel like relief, like finally exhaling after holding your breath for too long. Some truths will feel like grief, like realizing you stayed somewhere longer than you needed to. Both can exist at the same time. Do not rush this phase. And do not dramatize it. You do not need to make announcements. You do not need to make declarations. You do not need to prove that you have changed. Change will show itself naturally when you stop pretending. Your only work right now is to observe. To notice what tightens you and what softens you. To notice which thoughts bring clarity and which ones drain you. To notice where you feel more like yourself, and where you feel like you are performing. These are not small signals, they are precise ones. There may be moments when you want to go back to what is familiar just because it is familiar. Not because it is true, but because it is known. Be gentle with yourself in those moments. You are not losing anything essential. You are shedding what was never meant to be permanent. Some parts of your life were scaffolding. They were meant to support you while something stronger formed. But scaffolding is not the building, and when the structure is ready, the supports must come down. This phase may feel emotionally full, not overwhelming, but rich, layered. You may cry more easily, or think more deeply, or find yourself needing more quiet. This is not weakness, this is integration. Your inner world is catching up with your outer life, and that takes energy. Do not try to be efficient with this, be honest. You are not being asked to fix anything, only to see clearly. And seeing clearly changes everything by itself. There will be moments when you realize that something you were afraid to lose, you have already outgrown. And there will be moments when you realize that something you thought you needed was only filling a space that is now ready for something truer. This is not destruction. This is refinement. And refinement always feels more personal than it looks from the outside. Let what is being revealed do its work gently. Do not turn it into a battle. Do not turn it into a performance. Just let it be what it is, truth making space. You are not becoming someone else. You are becoming more yourself. And soon, not suddenly, not dramatically, you will begin to feel lighter. Not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer carrying what does not belong to you. And when that lightness begins to appear, you will realize something quietly beautiful. You are already walking differently, even before you fully understand where you are going. And that is how you will know the revelation has done its work. Restoration does not mean returning, it means reclaiming. Not the old shape of your life, the true one. You are not being led back to what drained you, diminished you, or asked you to become smaller in order to survive. You are being led forward to what fits you without constant negotiation. There is a version of peace waiting that does not require you to explain yourself. There is a direction waiting that does not argue with your spirit. There is a rhythm waiting that does not exhaust you before the day even ends. This is what restoration feels like. Not dramatic, not loud, but deeply right. You may have imagined restoration as getting back what you lost. But real restoration is often receiving what you were always meant to have. Once you are ready to hold it without fear. Some of what you thought you wanted belonged to an older version of you. A version that needed safety more than truth. A version that needed approval more than alignment. That version did its job. It kept you alive. It brought you here. But it is not meant to lead the rest of your life. You are not failing because certain things no longer satisfy you. You are outgrowing them. And outgrowing is not betrayal. It is evolution. The window you are entering now is gentle, but it is also precise. It does not demand urgency, but it does require response. Hesitation does not cancel what is meant for you, but it does delay your experience of it. And delay, over time, begins to feel like confusion or heaviness or quiet frustration with your own life. You do not need to rush, but you do need to move. Even if the movement is small, even if it is only an internal agreement, even if it is simply saying, I am willing to live more honestly now. That is enough to begin. Restoration does not arrive all at once. It unfolds. Like light returning to a room, not in a flash, but in a slow brightening. You may notice it first in your energy. Things that used to drain, you will start to feel less necessary. Things that used to confuse, you will start to feel less convincing. Things that used to feel complicated will begin to feel simple. Not easy. Simple, and there is a difference. You will also notice restoration in your choices. You will stop explaining yourself so much. You will stop forcing yourself to stay where your spirit is already finished. You will stop negotiating with what you already know, not because you are becoming hard, but because you are becoming clear. This is what alignment feels like. It does not shout. It does not need to prove itself. It simply fits. But here's what is important to understand. This window does not stay open in the same way forever. Not because you are being tested, not because something is waiting to punish you, but because life moves, and when life invites you forward, staying still eventually becomes more uncomfortable than stepping into the unknown. If you ignore this window, nothing terrible will happen, but something quiet will. You will continue to use a lot of energy to maintain a life that could be simpler. You will continue to feel that low-level tiredness that does not come from doing too much, but from doing too much of what does not match you. You will continue to sense that you are close to something, but not quite in it. You are not being threatened. You are being offered a gentler way. And gentler ways still require courage. You do not need to leap. You do not need to burn bridges. You do not need to explain your process to anyone. You only need to stop leaning in the wrong direction and start leaning toward what feels quietly true. Small steps are enough. A conversation you stop avoiding, a boundary you finally respect, a decision you stop postponing, an honesty you finally allow yourself to admit. These are not small in their effect, they are small in their appearance. Restoration often looks unimpressive at first, but it compounds. And one day you will look back and realize, you did not change your life. You simply started living in agreement with it. This is the window you are in now, not a dramatic one, a real one. And when you begin to move with it instead of against it, you will notice something gentle and unmistakable. Life will stop feeling like a constant negotiation and start feeling like a quiet cooperation. And that is when you will know you have stepped into restoration. My beloved, listen gently now. The past does not define you. Not your wrong turns. Not your compromises. Not the seasons when you chose what was survivable instead of what was true. The moment defines you. Not the moment you failed. The moment you choose. You are not being measured by what you did not know. You are being invited by what you now see. This is not a message of accusation. It is a message of dignity. You are trusted with your own turning point. No one is forcing your hand. No one is counting your mistakes. No one is waiting to see you fall. This is about something far more sacred, your agreement with your own life. There is a quiet place inside you that already knows what is being asked, not in detail, not in a list, but in direction. You have felt it as a gentle unease, as a recurring thought, as a sense that you are ready for something truer, even if you cannot yet describe what that is. That quiet knowing is not your imagination. It is your wisdom. Do not wait for life to become unbearable before you become honest. Do not wait for circumstances to make the choice for you. There is no prize for enduring what you have already outgrown. You are not running out of time, but you are entering a time that carries more weight than usual. A time where small inner decisions will quietly reshape outer realities. A time where saying yes to what is true will begin to simplify many things that have felt complicated for far too long. You do not need to be brave in a dramatic way. You do not need to make bold announcements. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. You only need to be sincere. Sincere with yourself. Sincere about what no longer fits. Sincere about what you are ready to release. Sincere about what you are ready to receive. This is not about becoming someone new. It is about finally allowing yourself to be who you already are. There is a future waiting that does not require you to betray yourself to reach it. There is a peace waiting that does not depend on everything being perfect. There is a way forward that does not require constant effort to justify your own life. But you must agree to it. Agreement is quiet. It often happens in a single, honest moment when no one else is watching. A moment when you stop arguing with what you already know. A moment when you stop postponing a truth that has been patient with you for a long time. You may be tempted to think, I'll do this later. Later is not wrong, but later is how we stay in the same place while telling ourselves we are preparing. You do not need more preparation. You need one honest step, and then another, and then another. You are not asked to see the whole road, only the next true direction, and the next true direction is already clear enough for your heart. Even if your mind still wants guarantees, there is no punishment waiting if you hesitate. But there is a gentler life waiting if you do not. There is a version of your days waiting that feels lighter, not because everything is easier, but because you are no longer divided against yourself. You are not here by accident. You did not hear this by chance. This message came to you because you are capable of responding to it. Not perfectly, honestly. And honesty is more powerful than certainty. You do not need to tell anyone what you are deciding. You do not need to explain your inner shift. You only need to honor it. Life will respond to that more quickly than you expect. Quietly, naturally, without drama. The door is not closing, but it is open now, and you are closer to it than you think. Stay with this. Let it settle. Let it work in you, and when the next moment comes, the one that asks for your honesty instead of your habit, you will recognize it, not because it will be loud, but because it will feel true. And when you choose that truth, even in a small way, you will begin a new chapter without needing to announce it. You will simply start walking differently, and one day, you will realize you are no longer where you were. Not because you escaped, but because you finally agreed to move forward.